Alright guys, welcome back to W.D.Y.D CSP. What do you do as a central sterile processor? Alright guys, so I'm here showing you how to process the Thompson retractor sets. Now, I don't know how your facilities do it, but different facilities have different setups for this tray. And this actual retractor is a huge retractor. In this facility, it's actually broken down into 4 sets and utilizing 4 sets during a case. So I'm doing all 4 trays to make sure that, and as often it happens, some of these parts get mixed up in each tray. So if you're finding all 4 trays, you can pretty much match up and get all your items back into the proper trays. Now this tray requires a lot of care and lubrication because there's a lot of moving parts. So this tray, actually the first tray here, is actually the ratchet tray where you have the moving articulating arms. It requires lubrication at certain points, and you'll see certain points on the actual ratchets there that tell you the oil. The IFU tells you to lubricate each time it's processed. So very little bit of oil manipulated to kind of work the oil in. All right, and of course we're always inspecting for cleanliness. All right, always. That is step 1. Okay, the next thing you're inspecting is for functionality. Okay, so as we're lubricating and moving parts around, we're making sure that things aren't damaged, and we're looking to ensure that nothing's loose. Okay, organizing these trays. And again, these are extremely heavy trays. This is why we break them down into 4 different trays. And even as such, those trays are still a little bit on the heavy end. Okay, so we just went through the smaller components. Now we're going through some of the larger components here. Same process here, lubricating and inspecting for cleanliness, moving those parts around and blotting off the excess if there's any excess on these. And you see that I always do this against a absorbent liner, just in case you see any overspill. Okay, manipulating, moving things around. Okay, and then placing them neatly in the container. You've seen, first thing I put in my container after I inspected that silicone mat are my indicators. Always make sure that you put your indicators in your containers first. And for rigid containers, depending on the IFU of the indicators, you place 2 of them in the opposite corner. Okay, so 1 on the opposite corner of the actual tray. Okay, some of these moving parts here, again, I'm using instrument milk for this. Okay, so I'm using both lubrications available to me because the instrument milk is a little bit easier for hinges, and the control of the actual silicone oil is easier for the actual ratchet. Okay, count sheet in there. My filters are in place. Box lock. Okay, put my actual index cards and then my identifiers on my actual handles here. Okay, and tray number 1 is done. Moving on to the second tray here. Okay, this is the actual table mounts here. Removing that silicone mat, inspecting my tray, placing my indicators opposite corner there. Okay, scanning my tray to identify, and again, inspecting for cleanliness, making sure that there is no damage. Instrument milk to lubricate, and then the controlled oil in the actual port there, and manipulating the locking mechanism up and down. Okay, doing the same thing here, giving my lubrication, moving it around, blotting off the excess, manipulating, okay, to work that lubrication in nice and neatly into its container. Okay, all right, these are the actual clamps here. There are 4 of them. I'm lubricating them all with some instrument milk, manipulating, and blot off the excess. Now I know the IFUs for some of these lubrications say allowed to dry, air dry, but that's going to take quite some time there. Now if you have the time to do that, so be it. In a busy facility, that typically is not the case. Okay, getting my rigid container, Placing my items there. Filters are in place. Locks. Lock card if we're using it. And identifiers on the handle. And tray number 2 is done. Now this tray, this video actually took me in full length about 39 minutes to do. Of course, I was distracted a couple times to answer some questions. But again, this is with full inspection, lubrication. Now this is the actual bar tray. This is the extension tray. Okay, so a couple little bars here. Nothing here to lubricate, just inspecting to make sure that there's no rough edges, and of course that there's no soils. Okay, always identifying the instruments there. And again, we're doing this off screen here. You see me going back and forth on my tracking system to ensure that there is the correct items on there. And I'm very familiar with this tray, so I didn't really show where I'm actually looking at the numbers for this item. Okay, looking good there. Place everything nice and neat in the tray here. Okay, filters on the bottom. Okay, get my count sheet. Place my count sheet inside of the pack there. Filters on the top of the lid. Lock it up. My lock cards there. And my identifiers on the actual lids there. All right, that's tray number 3. Okay, we're down to the wire. We're going to the last tray here, and this is the retractor blades here. Okay, so we're going to take everything out of the tray here. Okay, of course, we're going to take that silicone mat out, inspect my basket, inspect that silicone mat, place it in so that the holes align in the bottom. So when you place your silicone mats, ensure that the holes align with the bottom of the actual tray here. All right, so this one here, what we're inspecting is the actual connectors here. Okay, so now I'm checking this one off on the actual paperwork here. I'm actually printed out my count sheet already, and I'm inspecting it with the paperwork and not off of the actual computer. Okay, matching up my numbers here. Inspecting for cleanliness, of course. And of course, making sure that there's no damage at the end where it connects to the actual ratchets there. Okay. No lubrications required here. Okay, so there are no moving parts with these retractor blades. Okay, these are your finger retractors. Okay, there's your Balfour type retractor blades right there. Okay. All right, some of your Kelly retractors there. There's your Sweetheart retractor, your Harrington. Some of your malleables. Again, you're looking to make sure that there's no cracks in the welds. Okay, a couple more Kelly blades here. All right. All right. This one, the number was a little hard to look, so I used my lighted magnification. Okay, my bladder retractors there. See my bladder blades. Okay, some more Kellys. All right, I'll go some of my little smaller guys, some of my smaller Kellys here. Okay, some more Balfour. Okay, ensuring that I got the right ones with the right lips. All right. Okay, so that tray, we're just going to organize it nice and neatly as so. Okay, as neat as possible. Get my count sheet. Okay, my indicators are in there. My blades are nicely organized. There you go. Get my container. This container, I believe, has filters on the bottom as well. Let me see. Let me make sure. Oh, that one's a solid bottom. Okay. All right, there you go. Tamper evident locks. Lock card. Tray identifier. And there you go, guys. This is the Thompson retractor. All right, guys. Peace.